That empty factory in the background should be a symbol of victory for these farmers. 3 years ago, their protest stopped this plant from building the world's cheapest car here. But now that victory seems hollow. Since 2008, many farmers around this area have lost their lands. Where we're standing right now is literally the barrier between them and their livelihoods, as the factory is still standing there. They're stopped every day by security officials who deny them access to their lands. This is an everyday occurrence, and in fact, even today, we're being stopped from filming here. Haradhan is one of those who lost his land. He shows me where his fields once were, on the other side of that wall. With no compensation and no other job to go to, his loss is immense.
My land was everything I had. It was passed on from my grandfather to my father and then to me. Since it was taken away, I've just barely managed to survive.
Theirs is a miserable existence. People in Shingur are caught between a ruling government that wants more industries set up here and an opposition that will do anything to block them. In between, the people remain deprived, with little but promises to placate them. Tarak says shutting down the factory was a big mistake, and people are still paying the price for it.
A lot of development would take place if this factory was here. People would have got jobs, and this area would be much better than it is now. We are stuck between politicians who are just craving for power.
Here, people are tired of promises.
We want to make these political parties accountable to the people. We think that, what promises they make, that should be fulfilled.
While politicians calculate their next moves to win power, life remains stagnant for the people of Shingur. Their victory 3 years ago remains nothing but a distant memory. Prerna Suri, Al Jazeera, Eastern India.
When you use the internet, sometimes you want to be anonymous. But sometimes you want to be sure that you and only you can access sensitive information or provide it to others. You might have lots of passwords, too many to remember them all. Or maybe you use the same password many times. Either way, ID thieves can guess or steal your passwords and pretend to be you. A group of private and public organizations thinks there's a better way. They're building a voluntary system, an identity ecosystem, where consumers and businesses can more confidently conduct transactions online. If you decide to participate, you would pick one or more private or public secure ID providers and prove your identity. The company or public agency would issue you a trusted credential. It might be a secure application on your cell phone, a smart card, or another device. Your credential proves you are you. Most online providers no longer need your personal information. You could use your trusted ID for sensitive transactions and not use it for others, like surfing the web. Your ID provider would not know how you use your credential. There is no central database tracking your actions. In the new cyber world with trusted IDs, online transactions are safer and more convenient. You control access to your personal information.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, April 18th, 2011, and I'm Darko. This is the final part 4 for today. My website is www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. And I'm going to just move forward. New Georgia law allows racial profiling. A new ratified legislation in the U.S. state of Georgia paves the way for racial profiling and gives undocumented immigrants a criminal status. Hispanics becoming a majority in the United States. And next up we have China banning time travel for TV. China's been cracking down on dissent of late, as the recent detainment of artist, Ai Weiwei suggests. With the latest guidance on television programming from the State Administration of Radio, Film, and Television in China borders on the surreal, rather an attack against the surreal. And it says here, the government says TV dramas shouldn't have characters that travel back in time and rewrite history. This goes against Chinese heritage, reports CNN's Yoon. Researcher, police increasingly peeping at email instant messages. Law enforcement are making tens of thousands of requests for private electronic information from companies such as Sprint, Facebook and AOL, but few detailed statistics are available according to a privacy researcher. And see, public-private, that's how it works. Wells Fargo tests microchips for Globetrotting card clients. Again, public-private. Wells Fargo and Company, the U.S. bank with the most branches, is testing microchip-embedded credit cards with frequent travelers to address complaints of customers who have trouble using their cards abroad. So yeah, you having a problem using your card abroad? Here, take a little micro RFID chip that's going to track your movements. When censoring the internet, follow the leader. It says here, China leads the way in internet repression, and others are catching on. So, and moving on here, and that is the model for the rest of the country, the rest of the world. Eventually, it says here, Royal Mail accused of spying on staff. Royal Mail staff are to hold a strike over the company's bosses spying on and monitoring their movements. Union officials have revealed, and police step up block monitoring system in China. This is pretty spooky. The Chinese regime's fear that dangerous ideas about democratic uprisings could quickly spread has inspired an intensive monitoring system that reaches down to individual apartment buildings. Block police are living inside the residential communities. If several people stand together and chat, police will come over to listen. Beijing dissident. Next up, Roger Ailes caught spying on reporters at his small-town newspaper. And then we have this. Chinese authorities evict 80,000 people ahead of summer university games. Authorities in China's southern city of Shenzhen say they have evicted 80,000 so-called unstable people from the area. They call it 100 Days Social Security Campaign. It was launched earlier this year ahead of an international athletics event for university students, the summer Universiade. So, it says local media report that people who are mentally ill or who do not have proper ID. so if you don't have a proper state ID, in other words, i.e., like the internet, they're just talking about, a slave ID, that you're a proper slave, you're going to be mixed in with the mentally ill. Do you see that? Or are considered unstable by the Chinese regime. Wow, I wonder what that implies. We're rounded up and sent away from the city. God, authorities have not said where they've been sent, so that's very reassuring. A new Clockwork Orange, the marketing gadget that tracks brainwaves as you watch TV. So there you go. And a headband designed by San Francisco firm M-Sense can sense your brainwaves as you have reactions to watching something and then record the data for researchers. So there you go. And don't forget, the brainwaves and televisions and the way they are broadcast are the same as your brain waves. They could have picked any frequency, and they chose that one. Why? Because they're embedding subliminal messages in your mind. It's called programming. It says here, TSA security looks at people who complain about TSA security, and you don't need an article to tell you that, guys, right? And they're, it's behavioral indicators, right? So if you're pissed off about being treated like a slave, they're going to target you more. That's just common sense, right? That's how the state works. BAE builds a secret microwave gun for the high seas. Defense contractor BAE Systems isn't ready to talk about it just yet, but one of its forthcoming projects is a microwave weapon that can that can fry the electronics of watercraft engines and other seaborne dangers. Malaysian school pupils to be scored on weight. Yeah, as those Asian people, in Malaysia, they're just so dang big. It says here, school pupils in Malaysia are to be scored on their weight as well as their exam result as part of a government drive to cut adolescent obesity. So a ration of height to weight as well as their performance. So there you go. And it says here, Christian facing the sack for displaying a cross in his dashboard. A devout Christian has vowed to stand up for his faith despite facing the sack for putting a small cross on the dashboard of his company van. Shame, shame. Don't you know Lucifer runs this planet? Says here, Nevada SB 412 to make felons out of natural health practitioners. Then we have this. White House draft bill expands DHS cyber responsibilities. Under White House plan, Homeland Security will have far-reaching oversight over all civilian agency computer networks. So here we go. Cop who shot Pace University student named Officer of the Year. And then Florida law enforcement mislead and push the limit of the law to stop open carry rights bill. Says radiation near Japan reactors too high for workers. Japan nuclear emergency at Fukushima to continue for 6 to 9 months, and that's what all these articles are saying. This ain't going to be over for a long time, just like the BP disaster, which to me just shows what? It's a big eugenics program. It's a big eugenics operations. This is all planned, right? They could have prevented the Deepwater Horizon. It just happened to be Halliburton that was part of that little debacle. And they just happened to buy a company for oil reclamation just days prior to it. Also, Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, yes, they betted on the big oil company, the Deepwater, in there. Basically, before the Gulf spill, they started betting against it, that something bad would go on, and it did. So that's just all signals pointing towards a false flag, including HARP with Japan, because, well, they didn't want to surrender their economy to the New World Order. But I think they already have. It says here, radioactivity rises in sea off Japan nuclear plant. FDA claims no need to test Pacific fish for radioactivity. Just go ahead and eat and die. Japan death toll raises to 14,000. And unfortunately, people trust their government, so they'll just listen to whatever they say. So no obvious change monitored in radiation levels in China, so everything's good to go over there. Radioactive Japanese cars detained in Russia's Far East. Says here, radioactive iodine in city water spurs and enhance testing. So, and looks like they're going to do a little testing in their water, so they're going to actually take some kind of action. Vietnam finds uranium-238 in sample of pine needles 4,000 kilometers away from Fukushima. Then, here we go. Japan mulls moving capital over disaster worries. So they're going to move their entire capital. Anti-government protests continue in Tokyo. Halliburton emerges from Gulf disaster unscathed. Last year's oil disaster in the Gulf crippled most of the region's offshore drilling industry, battered the coast economy, and hobbled one of the world's most powerful oil companies. Yet, 1 year later, one central player in the Deepwater Horizon disaster remains largely unscathed, Halliburton. So, and the primary owner of the blown-out Macondo well, no company has faced more criticism for the deadly explosion resulting oil spill than Halliburton. So, next up, Halliburton agrees to buy Boots and Coots. This was April 9th, right before, like I said. And moving on here, mystery illness plague Louisiana oil spill cruise. So I wonder what it is. The state of Louisiana has reported 415 cases of health problems linked to the oil spill. And so there you go. And I remember seeing a video of some of these workers that predominantly were African American, were desperate for work. They were out there cleaning the spill, and when the media tried to come talk to them about why they didn't have respirators because they were told they didn't need them and all that other stuff, they basically were told by the guy that was in charge of them in this little tent on the beach not to talk to the press. So they all just didn't talk to the press. And now they're going to get sick, just like I said. So, you see? It says here, chemicals were injected into wells, report says, talking about fracking. And 18 killed and 155 injured in South China hailstorm. And look at this, at least 44 killed after deadly storms ravaged southern U.S. North Carolina, talking about bad hail. And I was in Indiana camping, and yesterday I saw the chemtrails being sprayed, but what I saw was the ripples from all the towers interacting with the chemicals, and I saw more than I've ever seen, ever. So it looked very, very weird, and there was something going on with the sun too. It says here, late April snowstorm sets new record. So here we go. It must be global warming. Allergy season could be one of the worst, experts predict in Chicago. No, that's because Chicago gets hit very bad by chemtrails, and I'm feeling it right now. It says universal cancer jab. Oh yeah, and guess when my allergies just started to kick in, guys? In 1994. Right? 1994, when supposedly the big spraying campaign began. Universal cancer jab vaccine that stops all tumors in their tracks could be here in 2 years. Then we have pancreatic cancer vaccine underway. HIV vaccine dubious. They're going to pull it. Children exploited for profit using fictitious mental disorders. GSK study suggests its antidepressant drugs cause suicidal tendencies. Go figure. Scientists warn that drugs of the future will be designed specifically to control the human mind. All those tweets, apps, updates may drain brain. Plastic bottles offer simple solution to save water. Talking about leaving it out in the sun so it can what? Have the BPA absorb into the water. Puberty blocker for children considering sex change. Children as young as 12 are allowed to allow drugs to block puberty while they decide whether to have a sex change. Then we have parents want gene tests. That is eugenics, guys. Philadelphia gives traditional family life dying in UK. I wonder why. Thank you.